everybody, and welcome back to the next episode of Come As You Are, a series by Beneath the Skin where we talk to amazing women who we believe really embody the term authenticity and who know that in order to live your best life, you have to come as you are. I'm McKenna, and I'm so excited to welcome this next guest. She is the board chair of Beneath the Skin, but she is so much more than that. And she has this incredible group where she is a wellness coach and she empowers women to make space for things that are important to them so that they can live their happiest and healthiest life. Please welcome Amanda Garcia. Woo.
Hi, good morning.
The studio audience goes wild.
Yes.
How are you today? So excited to see you.
Yeah, time change is a real treat,
It is. And it's kind of gloomy today in Nashville. And so I was like, the nap day. It's really.
Yeah. When my alarm went off, I was like, this is not real life. What's happening right now?
Yeah, no. And it's always like that. It always catches me off guard. But, it is what it is. And hopefully one day we won't change the hour anymore. I don't know. But man, I'm just so excited to talk to you today because so many reasons. One, I just feel like you are a person that really lives your life for you. And I know that it's taken quite a journey to get to this spot. So I'm just curious, kind of just starting off, what does authenticity mean to you? And what do you do to help kind of be your authentic self?
Yeah. So definitely a journey. I think it's interesting because when I first started my own just kind of journey of health and wellness, right? You can say happiness too, I suppose, because I think when I started, I was at a point where sure, some people call it rock bottom, but I distinctly remember feeling like this cannot be it. I am so sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, and I'm just not happy. If I continue to go through the motions of life, I know how regretful I will feel, and or literally at the end to be like, this was it. This is what I did. And so I think that kind of sparked, it started with these little baby steps. I think a lot of times people want to talk about this wild journey that they were on, that I started at the summit and then I started climbing the Everest all the way up from there, whatever it is. But
yeah,
for me, it honestly was these little baby steps that have compounded over time to be a huge catalyst to that's so clear to me now about what I want to be true for my life and how and what I deserve to feel and what I'm worthy to feel, and that this life is just so worth living abundantly, right? Which just sounds cheesy. So I think for me, at first you just replicate things that you see other people doing to get to what you hope to be true. So at first it kind of feels like you're imitating action steps. Mm-hmm. But then I think through that process, I have learned, and authenticity to me is it's embracing who you are and learning at your very core of who you are becoming. Mm-hmm. And then you start to act in accordance, or you start to know that you need to act in accordance with your own values and beliefs. Mm-hmm. That's outside of what you believe or what society believes you should be doing. And so, for me, living authentically doesn't mean that you're chipper, you're happy, you found this euphoria. For me, living authentically means that I'm owning fully who I am and who I'm becoming, and, facing my fears, learning, unlearning, in this journey. And it's not an end goal, right? It's, for me, I've realized that living authentically is just this, it's just life, right? It's being present and learning truly who you are, I think.
Yeah. Dang, that is so powerful because, so much of what you said, it's true. And I think that one of the most powerful things you said is you're kind of just taking baby steps, like
Mm-hmm.
every single day. And I feel like in the society we live in right now, things like diet culture or fast paced living, it's like if you're not getting results, if you're not doing XYZ in this short amount of time, you
Yeah.
failed. And
Yeah.
that's just not true. It's just not true.
Uh-huh.
So how did you kind of identify those baby steps to begin with? Like, I feel like for a lot of people, maybe if they have that realization of like, dang, like this is not what I want my life to be, it can kind of feel overwhelming to say like, well, now what? Like, how do I change my behavior? How do I change my patterns? Um, for you, what did it look like to say, okay, here are the baby steps I'm committing to. Um, and here's how I discovered these are the steps I wanted to take.
Mm. Yeah. So I think that I I think that I looked to people originally that really inspired me and that for me felt authentic. Like it's not just going like, who are the most successful people in the world? Like, what are they doing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Success does leave clues, I believe, but I also think that there are so many nuances to that. So I think like I really started to figure out like, oh, like who are my people? Like who's like the community that like really inspires me, that I feel like is aligned with what I believe to be like what I believe in my values.
Mm-hmm.
And like what are they doing? And so many of them were like self-care, making time for your like working out and getting in movement,
Mm-hmm.
um, eating to nourish your body and feel really good. And honestly, like I think that there are a lot of people who I look to for inspiration that showed me that life could be different, like living outside of the box or living outside of the norm. Um, and my little rebel spirit was like, oh, there are people who are successful that are doing things that my soul really feels a tug towards, or like I really want to do that. But when I look at some messages that society say, they're like, oh, well, like that's too outside of the box, or like that's too, like no one really does that, like that's a lie that they're doing that, or whatever it is. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's so first of all, it's just like looking for inspiration, like who is your community, who pushes you to like see outside of the box and kind of question like, can I do that, or like does that fit where I want to go, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Love that. And kind of like what you were saying about doing things that are outside of society's norms. For me, something that you inspire me about is the way you manage your time.
Mm,
I think that I know for me personally, most of my life, I had a very fixed mindset where, like, if I get all A's, if I get into this college, if I get these very tangible successes, then I will be happy. Then I
mm,
will be worthy. And to do that, I have to grind from, dusk till dawn and like no rest for the weary and, you know, that kind of just awful mindset. And honestly, like when when I started following you on Instagram and you were really posting a lot about like here's my morning routine or like here's how I make time for myself, I was so inspired because I was like, this is a woman who I think is very successful. I think has a great relationships, is super cool. I want to steal her house and her decorations. Um, and it made me question. I was like, like I'm not happy with grinding
mm.
24/7. Um, and so I feel like a lot of people might feel that way as well. I'm like, to achieve my dreams, to do something outside the box, I have to have these kind of like extreme expectations.
Mm.
Um, do you mind talking a little bit about if you've ever felt that way, if you've ever felt like I have to have extreme expectations to be successful, um, and then how you have decided this is how I want to manage my time. This is how I want to spend the 24 hours I have in a day to kind of like get to my authentic self.
Yeah, I think and I talked about this in the Be Balanced in the Be Balanced webinar too, but
Mhm.
my own personal story obviously comes with a lot of that, of like the point. And so for me, like I have been in all of those scenarios of, work harder, like that's how you get to where you want to go. Like if you're not seeing success, it's because you're not working hard enough, and all of those things. And I think what that led me to, I think that was society saying that. I also think like I've been a part of organizations that have, shared that message as well. And I think that led me to 80-hour work weeks. That led me to my anxiety was at an all-time high, and my health was at an all-time low. And the only way that I saw getting out of that was to work more,
Oh.
even though I was like a quarter productive in the time that I actually was spending. And at the time, it became like the work harder Olympics. So it was like, oh, you went home at 3. Well, like I was there until 8 p.m. or whatever, and turned into this really toxic, work environment or whatever. And the point of my story is that I ended up having my body like completely shut down. So
Mhm.
I've shared this story before, but like I lost all mobility and function of the left side of my body. I could not talk. I couldn't even read. Like I literally was looking at my phone to try and call an ambulance, and it looked like it was in a different language.
Oh my God.
And I looked and Pearl, my dog at the time, was like doing circles around me, like whining, which was like just so out of character. But anyways, long story short, had tons and tons of tests done after that. And everything kept coming back fine. And finally, somebody else that I worked with had a similar situation. And like, anyways, her doctor had shared that it was like a stress response of her body trying to protect itself. And I was like, well, that's exactly what happened. I was so stressed out, and all my options that I saw was to work harder to get yourself out of that scenario, which
Yeah.
is just not true. It's just not true. That was a turning point for me of like, I have to make a change, or else I'm going to continue to go down this path. And again, like I said before, around, authentic living, like, and when you're like, who are you, or who, like, like figuring out who you are. I think that's also a hard task for people. But what I realized what it was literally questioning everything, and like unlearning and rebuilding back up my belief systems and my core values of what I wanted to be true. So like, so many of us carry beliefs from like our childhood and what our families, raised us as, and blah, blah, blah. And for some of you, that may still authentically be who you are.
Mhm.
But what I learned is I started to question literally everything. And there are pieces of me that I've held, and there are pieces of me that I've let go and rebuilt. And I think that is so hard for people sometimes, to let go of those pieces that no longer serve them or have changed.
Yeah. I literally got full body chills, dude. Like,
Oh, me too. I'm like, dang,
man,
it's so true.
yeah, it is. And I want to clarify, you are still a hard worker. Like
Yeah.
you work hard. That's not that. I think something that, again, what you've inspired me about is like, I can work hard and still rest.
Oof.
I
Yeah.
can work hard and still do nothing on a weekend.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
I deserve that. Like, or just like be present with people I love, do things that make me happy. Um,
Mm.
because kind of like what you were saying, you were working long hours. So theoretically, you should be doing all these things, but you were quarter productive because like you had nothing left to give.
Yes.
And man, chills, 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 chills. Um, of just like, I think just so many people experience that and tie worthiness to these external things. I do that all the time still to
Yep.
this
Yep.
day. Oof, man. Ooh, I'm like just not another level right now. You just blew my mind. Yeah, so something else that you talk a lot about is rest.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, I personally am still working on not feeling guilty when I rest.
Oof. Yep.
And I, I have found kind of what you said too, like in those restful moments are also the moments when I kind of start to think about what is important to me,
Mm.
and what do I value, and what do I want, like when my life comes to an end, or when I'm older, like what do I want to look back in my life and remember?
Yeah.
Um, so for you, what things do you want to remember? What things do you want to, when you're 130 years old, um, oldest living human ever,
I
uh,
hope so.
because of your healthy living lifestyle,
Yeah. Yeah.
what are things that you really want to just be like, dang, like that's who I am. Like I'm proud of, like that's what I did.
Dang. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like big world things. It can be for you, like
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I'll just share a really funny one. Okay, so um I'm like surface level clean.
okay.
So like someone comes over, I like panic and I like straighten the house or whatever. But and it's so funny because I'll have friends that are like, Saturday is like my deep cleaning day, and it's so funny to me because that is the opposite of what I am. And I always say like, when you're on your last days on earth, are you gonna look at your loved ones and say, man, I wish I would have skipped that hike and deep cleaned my house more? I'm like, no, people,
Yep.
leave
Yep.
the house, like leave. So I think for me, like something that is authentic living for me is like I'm just done doing things to do things. So like
Whoop.
I
Sorry. Chills again.
like it's just like do I really want to do that? I think that's a part of like shedding the weight of what other people think of you, which is a constant. I literally think of that every day. Like no one has arrived on that. I'm human. Like of course, people's but at the core, I constantly am checking myself and asking that like,
Mm-hmm.
is this for other people? Which at times it's fine if things are for other people. Is this for me and will it get me there? So I think like for me, it's just did I fully live in the present as much as I could? I know there will be seasons where I can't, but I overall in my life don't want to be like, I wish I would have been there in this way more, or I wish I would have like, spent less time on my phone. Or I think it truly has to do with like being present. And one of my core values that I've learned in this journey of really unlearning and relearning, and I would say for this series more specifically of like a next step is like part of the unlearning and learning was really me getting clear on what my core values of this life are. And I do this every year because what I've learned is, my first time doing this of literally what are your core values, I did it 5 years ago, as a part of like a workshop. And I did it, and I do it every single year. And over the years, as I've learned and grown, my core values have changed. But one that's always been true is making a difference. And so for me, I want to make a difference now, authentically. That doesn't mean for me that I'm going to solve a world problem or that I'm going to be remembered for like X, Y, and Z. For me, making a difference is in my daily relationships with people, loving my community really well, empowering women to also live authentically that won't look the same as mine. It's completely different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, I think the core of a lot of the work that I do is around women and like work with like with women and helping to empower them whatever they want this life to be, whatever that looks like, I think.
That's beautiful. That's really incredible. Um, Kind of as just like a final parting thought. Two things that really stuck out to me in what you talked about is kind of talking about unlearning and letting go of things that
Mm.
don't serve us. And I mean, I can relate to that in, you know, so many ways. And I think a lot of people, or at least identifying like, yeah, maybe this doesn't serve me, but I don't know how to let go of a part of myself essentially, or something that's been who I am for a long time. Um, what did that process look like for you in saying like, you know what, like this doesn't serve me, and I, it's okay to let it go, because I think sometimes that can feel a little bit like a failure of like, or not even a failure, but just like, again, like, how do you let go of something that defined you for a long time or was a core belief? Um, yeah, so just kind of like as a parting thought for people that might be in that space of like unlearning unhealthy behaviors or unlearning mindsets or, you know, whatever it is, um, you know, how did you go about that? And then what do you suggest for people that are kind of in that stage right now?
Yeah. I think that it's a lot of honestly, it's a lot of journaling and like really just exploring like journaling and feelings, I think are the top two that come to mind when I think about that. Like I think okay, so for instance, a lot of people are like, "Oh, you know, a lot of my friends are going to college. I should just go to college." Why should you go to college? Who is sharing that you should go to college? Do you need to go to college for what you believe you want to do or you're not sure what you want to do? Is that going to get you there? Who, you know, like, do you tie that to status, worthiness,
Mm,
whatever, or is that truly a staple that you believe will get you there? That's just like a you know, societal whatever.
yeah.
Same thing, marriage and kids. Do you believe that because that's just something that your family, community, society has kind of always told you? Or is that deeply in your core what you believe helps you like love authentically, be authentically, whatever it is? So I think it's like seriously journaling. And then it's also like if you're changing that belief, like there will feel tension and, you know, anger, sadness. You know, there's a lot of grief in letting go and rebuilding things. That's something that's also really important. I've grieved a lot of things that I have lost, in my beliefs and my mindsets and who I believe, you know, and sometimes it's even like who you believe people are that maybe have changed, and that one's really hard too. And so I think through that, it's also just kind of like, um wow, as I'm putting up boundaries around this or like this relationship or this thing, is it starting to make me feel a different way about certain things? So like even like family relationships, right? Like say you like I put up a boundary around a family member or something. Now like when something comes and something that used to be triggering to me, they like come to me and say these things that used to be extremely triggering to me because I've done so much work through this. Now I'm like I can like rationally talk about it and rationally like just be a neutral party and say like, oh, I hear you saying that. Wow, that sounds really hard. Like, how can I support you in this moment? Instead of me being like, I can't believe this happened to me again, like, oh, or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and of course, like, you know, McKenna, I always plug this in every talk that I have, like there's a difference between personal growth and development and the work that you do to figure out authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
There also is absolutely nothing wrong. And I'm a huge advocate for therapy, counseling, and support because there are things that are really challenging to work through on your own and you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so also just want to be really upfront and clear that like therapy is a huge catalyst for people when you're stuck in that unlearning and relearning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is amazing. And I have literally had chills for like the past 20 minutes. Like everything you said, I'm like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I mean, Amanda, thank you so much for talking with me today and sharing your journey to authenticity. And I know that there are people who will be inspired by your journey because you've inspired me, and I know you've inspired like other people. So thank you so much for being here today. Like we're just so grateful to have you.
Yeah, I'm so thankful to be here. This was so fun. Coffee chats.
So lovely. I love it. We will put Amanda's handle at the end of this video. Go give her a follow. She is amazing. And, you know, you could even join her wellness community. I don't know. Like,
Oh,
it's
yes.
pretty cool. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.